Time's a wasting. Welcome to another episode of Alicia, the Future of Work, a guide podcast, B2B jam session. I'm incredibly excited because I have a phenomenal friend, brilliant leader, entrepreneur, and guest on today. He is one of the co-authors on an amazing book that has just recently been released, I believe, that he's going to be diving deep and talking more about, called Time Off. And I'll share a little bit about the book really quickly. Co-authors Max and John have both spent their time working in software startups where many are worshiping the mantras that are so pervasive in our current working culture. Max got his PhD in quantum physics. He's not going to be joining us today, but one of the co-authors, John Fitch, the man himself, who is a startup coach and entrepreneur and former product leader, he's going to be sharing a little bit more about the Time Off book, his background and story, and also how can we all create that time off in our work and in the future that is being built around the workplace culture due to COVID-19 and that we're co-creating right now. So I'm really excited to talk to him. Now, if you're tuning in, I want to show you love. If you're tuning in right now from Austin, from Oakland, from the Bay Area, wherever you're tuning in, please let us know in the comments. We want to give you some love. We want to recognize you, acknowledge you, and let you know that your presence is felt here with us on the show today. John and I are actually Austin natives, so we're probably going to talk a little bit about Austin, how much we love Austin. So if you're tuning in from Austin, please show us some love. With that said, let me bring on John to the show. Hey, buddy.
Tim, first of all, you have the most contagious smile that I've ever interacted with. Thank you.
Thanks
for that. I would be upset if I ever saw an avatar of you online that didn't have you smiling. So I'm like, that's not him. That's not him.
Thank you so much, man. I really appreciate that, man. Thank you so much, man. I always appreciate when I get positive compliments from positive people, man.
Well, positivity is contagious, and thanks for spreading it.
Thank you, man.
Thanks for spreading that. That's the one thing we need to be contagious. You know, this COVID-19 we have to figure out, but happiness and good smiles. Let's let it spread.
I love that. John, man, I would love for you to share, because you're actually currently tuning in from the West Coast. Usually you'd be in Austin right now, but you're tuning in from the West Coast because you're actually taking some time off yourself due to COVID-19, right? Tell us a little bit more about that.
Yeah. So I'm currently out in Northern California. Normally I'm scorching in Texas at the moment. Yeah. And after shipping the book Time Off, I had to make sure I'm not a hypocrite. Yeah. And I'm using the time to work on the next book, as well as a new venture. Wow. Business-wise, and decided that normally I would travel to Europe and kind of go on a sabbatical and submerge myself in a new culture, which is always great for inspiration, but that's not in the cards. So decided, you know what, there's so much to see in the US, and it's been a long time since I've just road tripped and camped. And so now I'm in your neck of the woods, which is nice. You know, it's real nice to be outside, and my friends from California are like, man, it's hot outside right now. It's 85. And I'm like, man, this is perfect weather compared to Texas. Perfect. And you know.
Yeah, no, dude. Texas is super humid. Thankfully, I'm happy I don't live there anymore. But, we're really thankful to have you on our Guide Live podcast today, man. And, I'm really excited to dive deep with you about what inspired the Time Off book. But even before we get on the book, let's go back to, John and his history, his story. And really, how long have you been doing the work that you do in startups and entrepreneurship, man?
We probably started about the same time. When I was a sophomore in college, the iPhone came out. Steve Jobs stood on a stage, put out this device, and my life changed in that moment. And it was less about the hardware, and it was more about the App Store, realizing that what an incredible marketplace for makers. And so I, in a very naive way, dove in and started designing and building apps, and have been in the industry since. And I usually had a good habit of thinking for myself when it came to product work, when it came to expressing creativity, but I was overly dogmatic with how I worked. I only believed that the way to be successful was by working more. And I've since then been studying the art of work smarter, not harder. And that led to the Time Off project. And I'm a type A person. I still love shipping. You and I talk about making and maker culture.
Yeah.
It's super important, but 50% of the creative process involves detaching, where we allow our subconscious and other aspects of our amazing computer up here to work on things differently. And the creative process, as we document, and we curated it on some old research that we thought deserved to be dusted off again. The creative process has 4 phases. First, you have preparation. So think about you're getting ready for the work, you're organizing, you're strategizing, you're workshopping, prototyping. Then you have incubation and illumination. And then finally, verification. The first one I mentioned, preparation, and the last one, verification. That's work. That's time on. That's shipping. That's doing. That's making. That's coordinating. Incubation and illumination only occurs when we detach. So when you're cooking a meal or you're on a walk or maybe you're making music, whatever your hobby is, it's not just an escape from work. It actually is adding to your work, because in that moment of detachment, you're connecting new dots. There's part of the way our neurological system works that even though it doesn't feel like we're working on the task, by going off and doing something else in our time off actually allows us to incubate. So it sits there and marinates, right? Your idea, your concept. And then we all know that infamous aha moment, that light bulb moment. That is thanks to time off. And so we wanted to put a book together that had people feeling proud of their time off practices instead of feeling guilty, because we have a long overdue to change mindset around us pretending we're machines. And in the future of work, machines are going to be machines and handle a lot of the mundane, whereas us humans get to be messy again and creative and playful.
Yeah, no, I love that so much, man. And I love how you just walked us through this process of how really the creative process works. And I've never personally even actually heard it said like that. And, we're both creatives. I want you to touch a little bit, and I want to show love to the people who are currently tuning in right now. Shout out to Julia Taos, who's tuning in. 50% of the creative process involves detaching. Loving this. Shout out to Julia from Philadelphia. Julia, much love to you. We appreciate you.
Thank you.
Shout out to Jason, who's saying spread out the happiness. Thank you so much, Jason. Let us know where you're tuning in from, by the way.
Sarita, Bangladesh. We got all the way in Bangladesh.
Bangladesh. Oh, wow. Even better. Yeah. Sarita is tuning in from Dallas, Texas. D-Town.
What's up, Texas?
Yeah, what's up, Texas? Walter is tuning in from New Jersey. New Jersey. Right. How are things in New Jersey, Walter? Let us know. I haven't talked to anyone in New Jersey during COVID-19, so let us know how things are for you, my friend.
So real quick, a question for Tim and all of the guests right now. I'm just curious, what would you consider your most quality time off? Talk to me about your hobbies, the things you do outside of working on Guide. I'm just curious of what that looks like for you. And also, if you're listening, share in the chat what you consider your quality time off practices. Because to me, this book isn't about teaching you anything new. It's about reminding you of the good stuff you already have.
I love that, John. Yeah, let us know what you all are thinking, and I'll go first. So
please.
I'm so happy you asked that, John, because for me, I have to say learning. Even though when I'm not working on Guide, I'm always learning. So I have a ton of books. Like I'm really big on digesting and absorbing information so I can co-create more information, right? So I can co-create something and synthesize things. So for me, with a part of my creative process, my incubation process actually involves listening and learning, having conversations, right? And it actually allows me to be a better creative. I would love y'all's thoughts. Chelsea?
Yeah. What are some hobbies or some time
People are probably
practices?
Like typing right now, like, oh my God, I have ideas to share with John and Tim.
While we wait for responses, I'll talk about like one of my top ones is cooking.
Ooh.
Like cooking a meal for a group of people. To me, I've never seen people put their guard up when there's food involved. Yep. The moment you bring out some snacks or a quality meal, it's like people take off their mask and they're real. Yeah. They and you and I can disagree on a topic, but over a dinner table, we're able to talk about it in a more civil way. And based on the state of the times, that's something I just keep thinking about. Is like, I'm excited for when we return back to breaking bread more often, so that we can realize our connection. But that's one of my practices. I detach from my work, and some of my best ideas are when I'm sitting there stirring up a stir fry, and I'm like,
stirring up a stir fry.
yeah. And so to get rid of my guilt, you said reading, right? Mm-hmm. Like reading's one of your time off practices. Yeah. Mine's cooking. Someone listening may be yoga or hiking. What I've learned to say that helps me not feel guilty about time off is to add 4 epiphanies at the end of your practice. So you would be like, when I step away from work and I read, I'm reading for epiphanies. I'm cooking for epiphanies. And looks like Stella as well says cooking, and Sarita as well hosting
dinners with recipes. Yeah. I missed that too. Shout out to Sarita. Y'all should connect, John and Sarita. It seems like y'all both love cooking. You too, Stella. Y'all should cook us all a meal.
Hey, and Tim, we're in Texas, so you know those plates are going to be hefty.
Yeah. Right?
We're overeating in Texas.
I miss a good Texas meal, man. I miss a good Texas meal. Shout out to Sarita, who also said reading and listening to related materials such as human behavior, Harvard's Business Review case studies. With you on that, Sarita. I am feeling you. We probably read the same books, Sarita. We probably read the same books. So Stella's also saying listening to good, informative podcasts has been a joy. Stella, let us know, what is your favorite podcast? What's a podcast that we all need to be listening to right now that we are asleep on? Let us know. John, I want to dive deep back on, your book and kind of the creative process that went into the book. Because a lot of people don't know about the creative process that went into the book. I want you to share that with us a little bit.
Sure. Great question. So we've been working on this book for about 2 years. And what's interesting is my co-author and our illustrator, Maria, they both live in Tokyo. I've never met them in the flesh.
Wow.
So it's kind of weird and odd that us putting this book together was actually great practice for the state of the world right now, right? Everyone's now in distributed work, remote work. And I just think it's amazing that we produced this artifact that I'm so proud of. It's a real vulnerable thing, to ship a product or to ship a book. And we're very proud of this book. And I find it positive as a signal for all of us that I literally have never met my partners in this book. And it's no light project. It was a big project. And we did it across the world from each other. And that's if you have the right mindset with these tools we have access to. You don't I like to ask myself, who's my next collaborator that woke up in an entirely different continent that I've yet to meet and create with, because we live in that reality now. And so it was amazing to put this book together. And the end chapter is about the future of work, which I'm excited to jam with you on, given you're all things Mr. Future of Work.
Yeah.
But to me, it's just a great signal that we can approach these projects in a more asynchronous way, because each one of us was able to do our best work without feeling that pressure that I needed to perform at a certain time. Because my partners in the book, Maria and Max, literally, I would go to sleep, and they would wake up, and they would carry on with the project. And so our lean team was able to, in a way, operate almost 24/7, but none of us being burned out. So I thought that it was an amazing process. And the last thing I'll say, and I know you're all about this, and you share such beautiful wisdom on LinkedIn and other platforms about the importance of just prototyping and making something, in co-creation and co-innovation. And the greatest choice that we made was, I was sitting there for months spinning my wheels, asking, how am I going to make a book? I don't know what to do. I know how to make software. I don't know how to make a book. And so I defaulted to what I know from software, which is prototype often and share early.
Yep.
And so we started literally with a table of content saying, hey, here's this book about time off. It's all about the importance of having a rest ethic. We want it to be science backed. We want it to be filled with stories. Here's our concept of a table of contents. We shared that with several hundred people. Some of them were like, that's stupid. Oh, but that chapter that's interesting. Tell us more. Yeah, that's fire. And so literally through many processes of that, the feedback is helpful to not only make you a better book in our case, but a better product. But what I want to preach is that it takes away the resistance we have as creators, that self-doubt that's there. Yeah. Every time I shared a new piece of progress of the book, I felt that inner enemy that I have inside of me that wants me not to ship, that wants me to wait until tomorrow, that's like, I'm not good enough. Every time I shared it, that voice got quieter and quieter. Wow. And so to me, the creative process, the sooner you have a proof of concept, I like to say, demonstrate. Don't make it about words. Demonstrate something, because people are going to react to it. And in a way, you get to be a lazy entrepreneur because people decide your roadmap for you. Yeah. You don't have to sit there and come up with all of it yourself.
Yeah, they'll give you their ideas on how they see it, and how they embody it. It's so powerful, because I think the same thing applies to software as a service and building any venture too. You're always co-creating with customers, and I think people think it only applies to software, but as you just mentioned, it applies to any creative process. Whether you're writing a book, you're building a service-based business, or you're just starting a new venture with a friend, right? It's applicable across the stream.
Mm-hmm. So I want to get your reactions to this. You look at the future of work through so many different lenses. Yeah. We looked at it through the lens of, in the future of work, humans will be more human, because that's, and my co-author is a thought leader and pioneer in an area of artificial intelligence called deep learning. That is truly being leveraged now to automate, as we see it, a lot of the mundane. And you could either be scared by that, or you could be like, wait, these machines, they're an opportunity for us to get back to our humanity, to get back to empathy, creativity, strategy, leisure. Yeah. So I would love your thoughts on, in the future of work, what does leisure look like instead of a nice to have? Is it more of a strategy, more of a skill set? Would love your thoughts, since you think about the future of work more than I do.
Yeah, because we're obsessed about it here. So let me show love to Richard. Shout out to my boy Richard, who is in the house. Richard is one of the best salesmen in the world. If you are not following this guy, please follow him. Shout out to Richard Moore. Shout out to Stella, who's saying ultimately people buy into people first before anything else. Stella, I appreciate that, and you are speaking the truth. Stella is also saying validation can be a fear to action. Don't validate, co-create, right? Shout out to you, Stella. And Stella is also saying, sounds like you had a lot of synergy with your partner, John, which is really, really positive. You always need synergy in projects. So that's really, really good. So Shalika is listening to the podcast and learning something new every day about herself. Shalika, we appreciate you. You're one of our top listeners, and we thank you for always listening. We have amazing guests and creators such as Sean. Cooking, and she's also actually currently, so I think one of her favorite things to do that is about part of her incubation process, John, is cooking and doing hair, which I think is amazing. I love that. So
yeah, well, and I was just gonna say, in those practices, it's time away from work, but I have this provocative belief that our most important work happens outside of work, given what we talked about earlier in the ideation process, illumination and incubation, or to flip the order, incubation, which leads to illumination. We are now in a world where it's a knowledge economy. It's a creative economy. And so if you're not illuminating, you're not doing anything interesting. And so, look, I'm not here to say that everyone's going to have the same time off model, but depending on your season and your phase of life, the things that make you the most calm, the most playful, I know everyone listening is already doing it. What we're all about in the book is to do more of it, and intentionally. And in our subtitle, you and I talked about this on our awesome exploratory call. We have a lot of books out there about work ethic. We wrote a book about rest ethic, keyword ethic, intention, discipline. You have to protect it as a leader. You have to enable it and empower it. because there's so much unbelievable potential to be unlocked in our realms of time off.
Yeah.
But let's talk about it. Oh yeah. What Richard
they're
said.
feeling it. They're feeling you, John. But you asked me a question, right? How do I see leisure happening in the future of work?
In the future of work, yeah.
Yeah. And before I even answer it once again, if you are loving this episode with John Fitch, the man, Mr. Time Off, please share it with your network. Tag John if you're learning something. Tag John and I if you're learning something on LinkedIn. Share with your networks. We really appreciate it. And more importantly, we're going to show you love and boost your post and share with our networks as well. So thank you so much for tuning in and showing support to John and I for this episode. But yeah, John, I think for me, when I think about the future of work and the future that we're actively building, because I think often when people talk about the future of work, and even with COVID, they make it seem as if we've arrived, and we haven't arrived yet. I think we're still co-creating this future, and I don't think there's really an ending point. There's no destination. It's a matter of what do we collectively as a society see where we're going. And for me, I think leisure is actually going to be a matter of we're going to be able to create the workforce structure where people spend more time doing the things that matter, taking care of family, right? Being a part of their local communities. And I think we're kind of at the cusp of it. So I think we're moving. I think there's currently an infusion between the creator economy and actually what's happening in the workforce right now, right? So the fact that you, John, can create a book with a team of 2 that you've never met before, completely distributed, that's the creator economy, and that's the passion economy. So some have called it as well. But then meld that over with work, right? You were working this entire time, but you were working at your leisure and at the time that was best for you, and you can still focus on your family and the things that you care about. That's the future. Like you're living it, right? So I often advocate that that's the future that we're building, and I think people are just now waking up to it.
Wow. So on that note, I think it was, I'm not familiar with how it's, in college, I had a friend who spelled his name the same. Is it Saad?
Saad,
S-A-A-D? I hope so.
It's Saad. It's not sad. Shout out to Saad, the man. Saad is the man. We're really great friends. Shout out to you, Saad.
Okay, great. Yeah, so Saad had a great question. In the micro, love that you brought this question up. So one of our missions, one of our qualitative goals with the book was to expand the definition of time off. Prior to our book, when I said the words time off, people just defaulted to thinking vacation. Yes, but I'm going to improv and say yes, and it's much more. And so a rest ethic should be made up of not only your more macro versions of time off, like a personal offsite, a mini sabbatical or vacation, but Saad said it perfectly, micro practices. And my favorite one, and we have a dozen or more deep dives in the book on the different vectors of having a rest ethic of time off. And one of them, that no matter what your position is, no matter where you are, role-wise or in an organization or stage of your life, my favorite chapter on the micro is reflection. And whether that's a 5-minute journal practice or a 2-hour meditation practice, everyone's got their own method, but it's when you get to ask yourself really great questions, and really great questions initiate meaningful change. And literally, I looked this up. I'm a geek for all things words, and question, because of ION at the end, it's to initiate a quest. And so when we sit and ask hard questions, we initiate a new quest. And one of my go-tos on a weekly basis is all my hard work actually working? Because I'm guilty of it myself, of just getting lost in do. And quality of input equals quality of output. Versus sometimes I'm guilty of, I think quantity of input equals quality of output. And those hard questions allow me to reconfigure, redesign the way I'm doing things, because the universe has changed. And through reflection, I think we learn to kind of surf those waves better. I mean, think about it. A surfer, when he or she is out, you sit there in a reflective moment. You're not just trying to catch every wave. You sit and wait for the right wave.
Yeah, because every wave is kind of bumpy. You can't do every wave. You gotta catch the right wave.
Yeah. And I mean, I feel like you don't even need me on this beautiful interview, because those tuning in are connecting the dots. And it is about reflection, evaluation, and as Stella said, to unlearn and relearn, which is, I think, the real important meta skill of tomorrow and the future of work is how to learn.
Yeah.
Right? How to actually learn. And if you're not unlearning, you're not introducing opportunity for learning something new. And thanks to Moore's law and a bunch of other technological breakthroughs, we get to redefine ourselves at a pretty high frequency, which I think is exciting if you've got that, as you've mentioned, that growth mindset, that change friendly mindset. Look, I like to think about it as this simple: stress is contagious, and so is calm. And time off, and hopefully all of us listening that have influence, that are leaders in our own domains, I just hope for a calmer future, because when we're in a calm state of mind, we have more creativity, we make better decisions, and we're kinder to each other. Whereas if I'm not respecting my rest ethic, and I'm not recharging and getting new perspective, I'm not showing up my best self. And as leaders, I think that's our one role.
That's powerful, man. Spoken like a true sensei. Spoken
I'm
like
in
a
the
true
dojo.
sensei. So Tabana saying, I am up for great content. Awesome. Tabana's loving this amazing content that we are putting out. Shout out to John, John Fitch, who is a guide creator himself. He's always creating amazing things. Thank you so much, John. Stella is saying, time off means a better me to be better for others as well. Woo-wee. How do you feel about that, John?
So I think it uncovers one of our greatest challenges of modern time, is defining what we want, what you want, versus what, quote, society wants for us. You know, I look at, I remember in college, I took a course at UT, shout out Texas Longhorns.
Yeah.
We were both on the 40 acres, but I remember this breakthrough moment where I read a book called Manufactured Consent, which was all about the media empires and the powers that they have. And I think investing in a better you does allow you to show up better for others, because you then take on the responsibility of the only thing we should have responsibility for, which is ourselves, our actions, our mindset. And by showing up in that sort of ever self-improving way, you show versus tell other people around you. I know my greatest inspirations, the greatest leaders that I've observed, literally I've observed. They didn't overly preach to me or force me down a particular pathway. Talk about real senseis and a guide on the side. About like my mother, who spent her entire career in education. She said a real teacher is a guide on the side, not a sage on a stage. And I think in the future of work, we as society, as members, as civil members, we can all be guides on the side for each other, and slowly, or hopefully quickly, dismantle some of the unfortunate disingenuous power of a lot of the sage on the stage, which we see not only in our political realms, but also in the mass media, right? They're more of the mindset of the sage on the stage, whereas individually, from this like bottoms up. I mean, this morning I was jamming, I think it was a Bob Marley song called Small Axe. And the chorus is like the establishment is a big tree, but as people, we're a small axe ready to chop you down. And I think that's the power of where we are now and where we're going, is we started to democratize more and more. So thank you for hosting conversations like this. I think we are all our greatest teachers, first and foremost with ourselves, bringing it back to Stella's comment. And then ultimately others observing us do our inner work inspires them to do their own. And then we all win.
Yeah. No, I love that, man. I love that. Such a poignant point. So shout out to Sarita, who's really feeling what you're saying. Shout out to Sarita. You better get that time off book, Sarita. It's in stores. It's out. It's out. Sarita also asked, I want to show love to Sarita's question is, how do you suggest planning time off to be intentional? I think this is a big one too, and I would love your thoughts on this. She's found that there's a high chance of becoming distracted with learning new methods and having a great time with online group-based learning. But she finds herself asking, now, where do I apply this?
Mm-hmm. So when I think about, I mentioned this word earlier. There's two practices in the book. After every profile, we have about 40 profiles of prolific creators and leaders throughout history who led through a time off mindset. Anyway, at the end of each deep dive in each profile, we have a little micro tip on like, here's how you can start embodying this form of time off in your own way. And there's two that have had a profound impact on me. One is called a tech Shabbat, which takes inspiration from the Jewish tradition of a Shabbat. But given the word tech Shabbat, which comes from an amazing filmmaker named Tiffany Shlain, and from Friday night until Sunday morning, I go without screens. I work in software where we're all online more now, but detaching, having that time off from those machines allows me to get to some inner stillness. And in a way, I'm like a kid again. You know, when we were kids, we would get on bicycles and be gone all day, no devices, no Google calendars. It was amazing how we still coordinated without those tools. But in those moments, like time slows down and you get to work a bit on that inner work. So that's one recommendation I have, is just detaching from the screens, even if it's 2 hours. You get to a point of inner stillness, which leads to clarity. And then the second practice that has had a profound impact on me is what we call, and it comes from the book Essentialism, a personal offsite. So we see this in business culture. We'll want to change things up as a leadership team, or product team, design team, what have you.
We do an offsite.
Yeah, let's go do an offsite. Well, what happens when you do it to yourself? When you just go with yourself to some new environment to do nothing more than to just be in a reflective mindset. And why that's important is great. You do the online group-based learning. Let's say you're on the guide app and you're leveling up there. You still need to detach. And in the book, we talk about, everyone talks about the 10,000 hour rule, right? To be a master of anything. Well,
do you think that's true, by the way? I actually am not a believer in that.
Okay. Let's talk about that. I'm not a fan of how they framed it because what they leave out is that, let's say you're mastering the violin, right? Okay, great. You spend 10,000 hours literally on the bow, on the strings. What they leave out is that equals 40 to 50,000 hours of rest. Because in the detachment is when the muscle memory is happening, is when the creativity is happening. And so for me, yes, you gotta still put in the work, but you have to detach so that you can ask yourself, what about that work is solid, is meaningful, is useful. And so in our hobbies, in our learning opportunities, if you have to step away to ask yourself what's actually worth keeping, what's actually worth using. But let's debunk the 10,000 hours.
Yeah, no, I think you mentioned it. The framing is something off. Also, the fact is, I think the beginner having a mindset of the beginner's mind is not applied to the 10,000 hours rule, because it's I think one of the things that I've read in other books I've read about the 10 hours thing is that it's also about the feedback you're getting, but also realizing that mastery is a very subjective construct. There's no to be really the best masters are the most curious. They're always learning, right? So objectively, it's really hard to say you need 10,000 hours to be a master of something, because really, if you even think about the greatest companies that ever existed, Bill Gates wasn't necessarily a master at building the world-class brand before building a world-class brand. He learned, and for over 40 years, Microsoft became one of the greatest companies in the world. Is that mastery, or is it more so this curiosity and this Zen mindset, right?
I love this concept of a formula that just came to me, or equation, maybe, I guess a formula where curiosity leads to creativity, and creativity is what leads to ultimately doing something interesting. And to bring it back full circle to the beginning of our discussion, a big part of the creative process is time off, and whatever that looks like for you, because think about it, when you step away from the work, you get exposed to something else, and that something else allows you to be curious. And when you're curious, you open up incubation, and then we get the light bulb moment, and then you get back to work. But the question is, what light bulb are you working on? And to your point, if you're so in the man, I could talk to you for like 6 hours before we but what we say is why time off is going to be important in the future of work. And you'll love this. Please run with this, remix it however you see fit. We're coming out of an age where everyone was expected to be more of like a classical music musician, right? Specialized master of the violin, master of the saxophone, what have you. Whereas the reality of the future of work and the state of the world that we live in now is we all become more jazz improv musicians. And so you're right, Bill Gates and some of these other people you mentioned, they're more jazz musicians. It's about being able to flow with what comes. And so I think
I've called this the post-COVID renaissance.
Dang. Is that your next book?
Dude, I would love to write a book around the post-COVID renaissance. I don't know if it'll sell though.
We need it because speaking of the media, man, they're making it seem like it's
all bad.
Yeah. Whereas there's always some silver linings, and I think
there's always silver linings, brother.
You'd be the person to write it.
Yeah. No, I think we're definitely, to your point, we're moving towards the post-COVID renaissance where, we'll see people like you creating literally and creating remotely, creating in teams, and really kind of putting their interpretation and creativity to the world. And I think I love this post that was circulating around the web around the best companies are built around times like this, right? Times where there's a lot of pressure, and it forces you to be creative. It forces you to think about what's next. So shout out to John. Aren't you guys just loving John? He's an amazing guest. By the way, I've shared links to the Time Off book in the comments so you all can check it out. John, I want to ask you, man, where can people continue to follow your movement and all of the amazing things that you're building and doing, man?
So you'll probably see my avatar in the comment section of every LinkedIn post from Tim. So if you're following Tim, you'll see me commented in there. But no, my name is John Fitch. LinkedIn is where I'm at more these days. I find that there's a healthier environment for conversation there. Yeah. And I've been enjoying collaborating with other leaders there. I'm in the middle of my next book, and to our points earlier, I try to share my works in progress. So if you connect with me on LinkedIn, I promise that if you post things that you're shipping, I'm going to comment on it and give you some co-creation feedback. And I hope that you'll return the same favor when I'm sharing some of the things I'm working on next, how it could be better, how it could be more conscious, how it could be more creative. So I'd say LinkedIn is where you can find me being the most active. And again, I'll be like just almost on every post Tim makes. So
appreciate you, brother.
Well, thank you for the amazing content. Really, you're consistent, and that's very inspiring. And thank you for hosting and being a good guide.
Thanks, man. That's why we're building what we're building. That's why we're building our movement with amazing creators like you, man.
And hey, please don't ever lose that smile. Like my face hurts, dude. My face hurts because your smile just makes me smile. I don't have an option.
Oh, dude, thanks, man. Thanks. We definitely need to have you on for a future episode, brother.
We got another book coming out, so maybe when that one's out.
Wow, that's gonna be huge. What's it gonna be called? So you heard it here first on the Guide app, Guide Live B2B Jam session. John Fitch and team, or is it just gonna be you this time?
It's myself and a colleague. And the working title at the moment is called The Non-Obvious Guide to Magical Meetings.
Wow.
And so it's all about the art of facilitating powerful meetings, which I think if we're going to really embrace a more inclusive culture and mindset, it really comes down to being a facilitator of conversations. And there's an art to it. It's not just creating.
Hey, can you hear me?
I can hear you. I can hear you. Can you hear me? He's back.
He's back.
Hey, y'all. Tim went to the future and now he's back. What's going on in the future?
Hear me right?
I can hear you great.
Technical difficulties happens all the time.
No, come on, be honest with us, Tim. You went way into the future, and now you just came back real quick.
Oh, Lord. This is what happens when your computer burns out and you're working too hard.
Yeah, that's right. Your computer needs time off.
So I cannot hear you at all. Hold on, let me leave the studio. I'm gonna come back right now.
All right, sweet. Looks like I'm now the host of the show. Thanks to all of you who are watching, seeing these comments come through. It's so cool. And other podcast interviews. Are we good?
Yeah, we're good, man. So this is what happens when you're when you're working too hard and your computer burns out.
It's what happens when you don't give your computer time off.
Right? Exactly, bro. But no, thank you so much for coming on the show, brother. And we definitely need to have you on as you do this next book, because that's going to be a huge book, and we definitely need to promote it with you. With that said, John, I've shared the timeoff.com website, so definitely make sure you follow John's website. What's your powerful takeaway for our guide community today, brother?
There's a book that I would recommend getting in addition to Time Off, which is by Bronnie Ware. The title of that book is called The 5 Regrets of the Dying. And I'll just summarize by saying regret number 2 of the 5 is I wish I wouldn't have worked so hard. Wow. Because rarely do people remember you by your resume and your accolades and your to-do list count. It's your relationships, your conversations, those special moments where time slows down. So that's literally thousands of people's deathbeds worth of knowledge together. So
that's a good metric.
Yeah. Remember, you not only need time off, you deserve it.
Man, that's powerful. John, appreciate you, brother. Talk to you soon.
Appreciate you. Thank you, brother. Much love.
We too. Wow. Isn't that amazing? So shout out to John Fitch for coming on the show. If you love John, please make sure to follow his work. In addition, if you are interested in learning more about what we're building with Guide and being a part of our movement, check out guideapp.co. We have launched our beta, and we're actually gradually opening it up to amazing creators to be a part of our Guide creator community. So check out guideapp.co and let us know what you think and be a part of our movement. With that said, I'm going to be joining you all tomorrow with another special guest who you all should be really excited about. I'll announce them tomorrow. If you have thoughts on future guests that you think should be on a future episode of Guide Live, please reach out. Let us know, and we'll definitely consider them for a future episode. With that said, tune in tomorrow. Talk to you soon, y'all. Peace, love, and abundance. Sweet.